I've been put on the spot. Why? Because a few days back, we are being blamed for reckless business. And here I am trying to respond to that, partly, and also trying to explain ourselves out. My name is Mina Oswald. I'm from the CEO Africa Roundtable. Let me just put some of these issues into perspective. I think as Zimbabweans, it is high time that we become honest with each other. You know, sometimes we debate a lot of semantics on what wording you should have put in place to express a certain viewpoint. We are so hurt, divided, and we always label each other. At the end of it all, we expect the best economy in the world and a happiness index second to none. I think let's move away from that mentality. I'm not from that school. I think the first thing we must recognize is that this country lacks leadership. Leadership in politics, leadership in the church, leadership in business, and leadership in academia. Once we agree on that dashboard, then we start to introspect and then say to ourselves, when did the train lost its wheels? Now, once we remove ourselves from that particular whatever it is that we have put ourselves, the blame game stops. We take responsibility, we take ownership, and we start what I want to call today planning, not management. Zimbabweans have managed an economy. They have not planned an economy. We've continued to manage what we have. This is what we inherited. We've not come up with a Marshall Plan for this economy. So austerity, yes, Minister, but that's not good enough. The Japanese went into the mountains. Which one is ours? So as business, yes, I will apologize to our colleagues because I'm a capitalist at heart. And surely business is not charity. Let's agree. It is not. I've never seen a rich country, but I've seen rich citizens in a country. Isn't it? So if being rich is going to be criminalized in a country, then let's kiss happiness goodbye. Hey, Professor. Is that not true? So, if I'm going to be responding to some technical issues, well, I had prepared a small presentation because I was asked to make interventions on the relations between democracy and capitalism, rethinking the structure of a new economy. Guys, let's be clear. If Zimbabwe was going to be compared by any other country, we are going to be the, short callers and experts in devising terms. Just recently, we are now all singing austerity. Go to any primary school, they will tell you what austerity is. Why? Because it is the term for today. Just yesterday we were talking quintillions. Go to every primary school, they will be talking quintillions. We are busy doing nothing. As far as the presentation from the Reserve Bank is concerned, I think thanks very much, Doc. Doc, in our other life, he was a guest lecturer where I was a student in monetary economics. I think we had our own good discussion there. Now I'm also now giving back to you, sir. Right. The organization from where I come, just before the monetary policy statement was announced, we did put up a paper which we called Call to Action. The Call to Action document corroborated most of what he has said, save for a few items, which I think, if given an opportunity, he needs to respond to. Right. But before I start talking about those, let me share with you one of the experiences in the second biggest economy in the world, China. In 2003, on the 25th of June, China engaged in what it called an audit storm. You can Google it. An audit storm was realization by China as government to say that they've moved away from fiscal accountability, fiscal transparency. And I'll tell you one of the things that is so interesting about this one. They had misused about 1.4 billion yuan, which is about $170 million. 2.4 million of which was used to pay subsistence, well-being of children at a preschool for civil service. Why would you take state resources to pay fees for preschool or civil service? So, against that background, the realization was we needed to go into a national process of really evaluating this country to say whether we are properly utilizing national resources. The trickle-down effect will certainly become a knock-on effect on the pricing and incomes, isn't it? Now, Doc, I don't agree with you that inflation targeting, as far as your numbers is concerned, is going to be a reality in terms of your forecast. The current, as we speak, doesn't speak to that. I'm sure when you spoke about the pricing models, this is from where it's coming. I'm a businessman and I sell bottled water. As long as my price today does not guarantee me the same quality products next week at the same price today, I'll hedge. Whether it's in RTGS or it's in US dollars. As long as if I've got 100 units on my shelf today, and I don't have the confidence and trust that with the current dynamics, I will have the same quantity or better next week or next month, I will hedge. If I don't, I'll close shop. So it's now making a decision on whether I should close shop or I must hedge and survive. So what is the purpose of policy? Purpose of the policy is to equalize, attend to my fears, and enable me to continue surviving. So as far as the monetary policy statement is concerned, I think it tried to, but it didn't go too far. Why? Because my members are having problems when they go on the interbank market. There is no supply. Right? And the issue we raised was, if there's a jail term of 10 years associated with looking for it elsewhere, I still have a proper platform and there's no foreign currency, then surely the state is criminalizing business. Because if I go to the bank and I don't find it, or I don't get fair value of it, then surely I'll go where it is. Right? So it means your inflation targeting, unless you deal with the supply side of foreign currency on the interbank market, you are not telling us the truth. The second point is that we know that from the monetary policy statement, the Reserve Bank has got what they call surrender requirements. Exporters are supposed to surrender a certain threshold of their export process for strategic issues that the government is targeted, isn't it? One of which is fuel. And it's in common, in public light, that the fuel conundrum has been one of the avenues around which we were not appropriately using our foreign currency, isn't it? Now, how then are we assured that with surrender requirements are adequate foreign countries going to put it in the formal sector? I would want to think that, and this is my own opinion, stop surrender requirements. What for? Allow me to import my own fuel and charge it appropriately. All right? And then move government out of that business. All right? So that if the exporter has brought in their money, they must plan their businesses in the future. It's the first country in the world that government tells its people how to use their own money. It's unheard of. So allow these companies to plan. If it is, for example, a mining company, and this is another difficult problem government needs to be honest with. You spoke about gold. I have got this perception that government is deliberately destroying bigger gold players to the detriment of this economy and overplaying the role of small-scale miners. Look, if we are going to have this economy going forward, the environment for business must be uniform. It must not cherry pick. We want you guys to survive, and the other guys, you must see how you can also survive. But this is what we are providing this particular constituency for. No, it must be a business environment for everybody. So we've got bigger gold players owed money by the monetary authorities for a long time, and that is missing in your intervention. The traditional economy, I hope I'm doing well on time. The traditional economy, ZISCO, ZESA, Wangi Colliery, Sebo Chemicals, National Railways, isn't it? The new economy, you're adding now communications, your communications industry and logistics, isn't it? Right now as we speak, the new normal is a non-economy. Why? Because the five that I have spoken about, which spoke into human capital development, which spoke into actually affecting each and every sector, linkages between agricultural sector and value addition, these are all off the radar. If we are going to sustain this economy, let's go to the mountains, because these are equally important. And let me conclude and say, I believe, maybe we'll engage further in question and answer. I believe the future of this economy is not diamonds. It's not platinum. It's not gold. No. If you are going to be strategic enough, the future of this economy is in lithium. Zimbabwe is number 5 out of the top 10 countries that are holders of lithium in the world. What do we use lithium for? Cell phones, batteries, electric cars, isn't it? So for me, I think the monetary authorities must move away from management to strategic thinking, and then say, how do we locate Zimbabwe as a center of excellence for lithium value addition globally? Let's give gold to Chile. They give us 50% of their endowment, and then agree that we are going to now create industries around lithium value addition in Zimbabwe. We become the biggest exporter of batteries, battery products, electric cars, and their value chains. We drive the world from Zimbabwe. But no, we still want to manage traditional strengths which are no longer current strengths in our own cases. So thank you very much, and if there are any questions, we'll engage later on.